Now we head to Lebanon. For some breaking news, reports of a strong blast in a southern suburb of Beirut has killed at least 2 people. The parish, a well-known refuge of Shia militant group Hezbollah, has seen a recent wave of attacks, including most recently the death of former Minister Mohammed Chatta, a well-known Sunni and critic of Hezbollah. And this comes, of course, at the wake of capturing of Majid bin Mohammed al-Majid, the suspected leader of al-Qaeda-inspired group Abdullah Azzam Brigades. And the Abdullah Azzam Brigades are responsible for the death of 25 people in November, carried out by twin suicide bombers, one of which have been proven to be Lebanese. Now, the November bombing was the first to hit an embassy in the country's capital in the past 30 years and one of many hitting civilian neighborhoods in southern Beirut. The Abdullah Azzam Brigades have promised to attack militia associated with Iran or Hezbollah only if the militant group defends the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad, but have made promises not to attack the Shia people. Well, joining me now, we have HuffPost Live Zone Ahmed Shab al-Din in Beirut. Ahmed, how are you?
I'm good. It's good to be with you, Caroline.
It's good to be with you as well. Now, okay, you're on the scene, so can you just give us an insight what's been going on?
Well, you know, it was only a matter of time, as some people here would tell you, before there was some sort of retaliatory attack for what had happened just a few days ago, you know, last week, when we saw the bomb blast earlier this week. A lot of people disillusioned, as you can imagine. I was actually sitting in a cafe just about a mile and a half away. You know, the reports of the injured and what makes this so contentious is this is obviously a new year. A lot of people were looking forward to perhaps some subdued tensions when it comes to the sectarian tensions in Lebanon as well as the region, with the spillover from Syria, of course. But the most recent news is that, you know, local reports are suggesting that the death toll is rising above 5, which is the confirmed number. There have been at least 30 people injured. And this happened, again, this is a car bomb, you know, another car bomb. Of course, Lebanon has a long history of assassinations and car bombs, but they seem to be increasing with frequency. This has happened in Dahye. It's an area called Harit Harik, which is basically a Hezbollah stronghold, as some people report. But Caroline, what's interesting is even these terms that we use in the media are contentious. You know, when people call this area a Hezbollah stronghold, people take offense to that when, you know, the very reality is that Hezbollah enjoys widespread support there. Now, these images which we're looking at are from Al Manar, which is Hezbollah's local TV station, which reported that, you know, dozens of vehicles were damaged, several buildings were damaged, and immediately after the bomb blast, there were gunshots that were fired in the air in an attempt to disperse crowds. Unfortunately, these kinds of blasts are common, or all too common, I should say. So people are accustomed to rushing to the scene, curious to see, you know, what the latest blast is. And as you mentioned in the read, Caroline, many people are seeing this as a retaliation for the assassination of the former finance minister, Mohammed Chatta, who's a Sunni, of course, a critic of Hezbollah, and has very close ties to America, where he served as an ambassador. And, you know, Al Manar, which is Hezbollah's TV station, again, you know, has suggested that none of Hezbollah's political leaders were targeted in this attack. Meanwhile, as is often the case, we see that there are gun battles and infighting in Tripoli in the north. There were reports of injuries from those gun battles, and this happened in Jabal Muhsin. So lots of people are on edge. They're concerned as to where this might lead. Lebanon, it seems as though there's an increasing frequency of these threats as well as the follow-up and the attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Ahmed, you were mentioning there about this, you know, the idea that people, it was a new year, it's a new start for, you know, for everyone there and where you are. You know, what is just the general mood? Are people just sort of fed up? I mean, you know, you're right there, and you were a few blocks from where the blast happened. So, you know, what kind of mood are you getting from people that are on the ground about just sort of the general political situation?
You know, Caroline, it's a great question because Lebanon is as complex a country socially when it comes to religious divisions, as well as politically. And, you know, they have obviously a long history of the civil war. And now when we talk about the changing kind of lines geopolitically of the region, Lebanon is front and center. And you know, there's a sense of apathy, I have to tell you. I was, as I mentioned, a mile away, sitting in a cafe, you know, talking to 2 friends who are traveling tomorrow to New York. And, you know, some people heard about the blast, as people do on Twitter, on their phones, through WhatsApp. You couldn't actually hear it, even though we were very close, because of the geography of the country. Lebanon, obviously, a very hilly a country with many hills, especially in Beirut. So sometimes it's hard to know really how close these are. But to your point, this detonated during rush hour in a very densely populated area, a residential area, commercial area. This comes one day after the head of a Sunni jihadist group, if you will, which claimed the suicide attack, a rarity in of itself, years in Lebanon at the Iranian embassy in November. We heard that he was reportedly arrested. He is Saudi, ironically, perhaps, as some might suggest that. There's a sense in Lebanon that there's a lot, just like in Syria, that a lot of other people, a lot of other governments, a lot of other armed groups in the region are fighting inside the country, just as they are in Syria. And the people just want to, they want to live, at least the people that I was speaking to. So it's certainly depressing news to have on the new year. And, especially this is, going to be seen for better or worse as a major kind of violation of Hezbollah's security in the area. As you know, the European Union recently deemed Hezbollah's military wing a terrorist organization. The U.S. and others had done so for some time. So, we're starting to hear calls from certain leaders in Lebanon on the political scene. Progressive Socialist Party leader Walid Jumblat, who, said that he was speaking to Al Jazeera earlier today that Lebanon's government must try to come to some sort of conclusion and form ties with Syria to prevent Lebanese fighters from fighting in Syria. We know that Syria is filled with many fighters, and obviously the strongest of whom, when it comes to Lebanon's fighters, are Hezbollah themselves. So certainly not the kind of mood you want to start the new year with here in Lebanon. But I have to tell you, 24 hours before and just hours after, although people are tense and people are on edge, it's a bizarre kind of reality in terms of how common these things are and how people choose to continue their lives and continue on with their day's plan.
Well, listen, Ahmed, thank you so much for joining me, and make sure you stay safe. We don't want you coming back in anything but your whole self. So yeah, stay safe out there, okay?
Most certainly. And just on a quick note, you guys should continue to do the great work that you're doing at HuffPost Live, but also on World Brief. I was walking down the street the other day and I met a girl from West Virginia, or from Virginia, named Brittany, who stopped me and said, "Oh, you work for HuffPost Live and World Brief." And so just a reminder of not only how small the world is, but how important the work is that you're doing. So thanks, Caroline.
Oh, thanks, sweetheart. Well, listen, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.